She had no name, no voice, no face. A victim of the Taliban's justice. These are the pictures we showed the world a year ago. Now, a team from Dispatches is going back to find the truth. Who was this woman? Why was she here? Kabul Football Stadium, 1999. The brutal justice of the Taliban. But on this day, a shocking event even for Afghans. Filmed secretly, a woman driven onto the pitch. Even the prison guard sitting next to her in the truck was terrified.
What could people say? People knew the Taliban were wild. People were scared of them. I was frightened. To this day, whenever something happens, I start shaking.
The woman, she tells us, was a mother of 7. She was 35 years old.
She never knew she was going to be executed. She thought she'd be lashed. 100 lashes were okay if it got her out of prison.
She was tried in secret, punished in public. The anonymous woman beneath the veil. Our team wants to discover her real story. The search starts in Kabul, the city where she lived. A city shattered by decades of civil war. The team is led here. The files of the Taliban's military court. The accused and the condemned. After 2 months of searching, another lead. The archive of the Velayat prison compound and the very thing they're looking for. The woman on this police charge sheet is accused of murder. This one blurred picture is our first glimpse of the woman beneath the veil. Her name is Zarmina. The charge sheet says she murdered this man, Aluzai Aludin, her husband, a policeman. It takes a month to find the scene of the crime. This is a world based on old tribal clans, closed to foreigners. But once inside, everyone knows about everyone else. The trail leads to Zarmina and Aluzai's home in Charkala, a suburb of Kabul. Their neighbor knows the house well.
This is the bedroom, in this room.
Aluzai, he says, was drugged and hit over the head with a 5-kilo mallet while he was sleeping.
The murder weapon, which was a mallet, they threw it into this well.
But it was never found. Zarmina was taken from her home to Kabul city prison, where she was jailed with her youngest children, her newborn twins. This is Zarmina's confession. In it, she says that on the day of the murder, her husband had discovered she had committed adultery.
He said, "Tomorrow I will go to the Taliban and they will stone you to death." That night I was afraid. I hit him over the head with a mallet. It was 1:30 at night when I killed him.
Rana Saeed is the police investigator who interviewed Zarmina on the night of her arrest. In prison, Zarmina confided in her.
She always told us, if my husband comes home twice a day, I get beaten twice. He was always beating me and the children. He was drunk and he smoked hashish. We knew that.
The prison guards all knew about the cruelty of Zarmina's husband. Shehelbanu was the guard closest to Zarmina. She was with her the day she arrived in prison.
This is Zarmina's cell. The children were 6 months old when she came here. Zarmina slept here. They spent 3 years in this room.
The twin babies suffered.
It was very bad because sometimes they didn't get food. For 3, they were very small, very short. They couldn't get enough to grow.
The children here are now better fed. The Taliban are gone, but the criminal code is virtually unchanged. A man's word is often valued more than a woman's. This girl took a taxi ride. The driver made a diversion without her permission.
I started shouting and struggling, so he threw me out of the car and drove away. The local people smashed his car. I got caught and he got caught. Now he has accused me of asking for money.
Now everyone believes she's a prostitute.
What have you done? How many men have you had? You have slept with 80 people. Have you forgotten to say that? Don't lie. Tell the truth. Say you slept with 80 and just got caught with one of them.
This girl, jailed for fighting, could be released if she finds the money and extras.
She pays and agrees to do anything, but I can't bring myself to do that, can I?
Her friend will try to get the money. With Zarmina, money could have saved her life. Amidst the chaos of Kabul, the Supreme Court archives are meticulously ordered. The team is looking for the judgment on Zarmina. Here it still is, 3 years after her execution. It says Zarmina's life would be spared if she paid her 7 children for the loss of their father. 10,000 dirhams, that's $8,000.
They wanted her to deposit a certain amount of money or property. But Zarmina didn't have any money, and her family didn't help her.
That meant, under Afghan law, Zarmina's case was to start all over again. This time with a new set of judges. Her own children. Children were often forced to participate in the Taliban's system of justice. The children here are made to witness an execution. Zarmina's children were brought to court by Alazai's brother, their uncle. Zarmina's mother was an eyewitness. She wouldn't be filmed, but she gave an interview. She saw what they did to the children.
When they brought the children, they were always beating them to say the mother had killed. The children would shake. They were frightened. We can't say this. Our mother has not killed. He didn't bring the older ones, just the younger ones.
The children, including Jawad, just 2 years old at the time, are named as accusers in Zarmina's court papers. But Zarmina privately told the prison guards that another one of her children was an accomplice to her father's murder.
I asked her carefully, "How did you kill your husband?" She said, "Actually, I didn't kill my husband. My daughter killed him, and I took the blame because my daughter is very young and I didn't want her to be in prison."
Zarmina said nothing to the court about her daughter. Her children denounced her. She couldn't pay the money. And now she faced a new charge: prostitution. The police produced a report on Zarmina from 5 years earlier, during the Civil War. Zarmina had crossed the front lines to get food, but she got caught. Afghan soldiers raped her, she said. The court concluded, without Zarmina being present, that she was an immoral whore who had murdered her husband. She must die. The Taliban leader Mullah Omar personally signed the death order.
At night, they announced on the radio the next day she would be executed at 2 in the afternoon. When we heard it, we cried until the morning.
Her mother came to the door. She was crying. We told her, don't cry. Don't let her know about her execution. She stopped crying, and then we let her in. She told Zarmina, go make yourself up, because today you will be lashed, and then you will be released.
She kept asking me, you definitely know. Just tell me whether I will be lashed or executed. I kept saying, no, Zarmina, you'll only be lashed.
Zarmina left the prison with 2 guards at her side, driving with her to Kabul Stadium. Shehl Banu was one of the 2 women in the back of the truck.
She was happy. She didn't know she was going to be executed. She thought she was going to be lashed, then released from jail. We were very sad, but we were under orders. We couldn't do anything. The judge was announcing her execution. That's when she knew. She learned she was going to be killed when she was in the truck. She couldn't control herself. She lost strength in her legs. Her legs went numb.
Shehl Banu had to help Zarmina across the pitch.
Suddenly I saw a Talib with his face covered. He racked the gun. I was afraid and ran away. Zarmina tried to stand up. The Talib racked the gun for the first shot. They sat her down again.
She then saw her executioner.
When they fired the first shot, her head went back. But on the second shot, she fell down on her back completely.
In front of thousands, she died alone. She left behind 7 orphans. But where are they? The search for Zarmina's children starts in Kabul, a city on the edge, rampant with rumours. This was just an oil drum that accidentally exploded, but fires become bomb attacks here. In place of the Taliban is a volatile and uneasy alliance of interests. Locating Zarmina's 7 children isn't going to be easy. 2 were taken from her on the day of her execution. The other 5, it said, were dispersed among relatives. Zarmina's children are somewhere here. Some relatives say they could be scavenging the garbage heaps or living on the streets. It takes time to gain entry to the closed and private world of Afghan families. But a local translator, Mina, will help. She knows what you can and can't do here. A relative says some of the children may be under the legal care of their uncle. But how to find him? There's a lead to Zarmina's sister-in-law. The women want to talk to us, but we don't want to cause trouble by filming openly. Zarmina's sister-in-law agrees to talk to her brother, the children's uncle, but she can't promise anything. Zarmina's family is less helpful. They've been in dispute with the uncle over custody of the children. They've also moved house. It's close to impossible to find them. Reluctantly, a relative does take us to one house. It belongs to Zarmina's sister. Some of the children stayed with Zarmina's relatives during her 3 years in prison. Maybe they're here. Zarmina's sisters only know about 2 of her children, her oldest daughters, who they say were married off by Alazai's brother. But they do know a secret. Where Zarmina is buried. Her skull was shattered, her clothes bloody. They did not wash her, because she died in shame. Later, Zarmina's sister-in-law persuades Alazai's brother, the guardian of the children, to cooperate. If he doesn't know where the children are, there's nowhere else to look. The house is full of children. But who are they? Who do they belong to? Zarmina's dead husband Alazai looks down from the wall. On some of his own children. Here's Bibi. She's 10 years old. Her name means Lady of the House. Jawad is 5, small for his age. He was one of the twins kept in prison with his mother. On the day of her execution, he was taken from her. A boy brings tea. Zarmina's son, Huad, aged 13. We're told he looks the most like Zarmina. Zarmina's 3 children are now part of their uncle's family. Bibi is the household servant. Jawad helps his brother Huad tend the goats. The uncle says he cannot forgive Zarmina. She killed his brother.
In fact, I don't have the right to forgive. That's the children's right. The inheritors are the children, not me, the brother. The children were called for every decision and asked their opinion. Then the court decided. It wasn't rushed. They would ask the children, "This is your mother. Do you forgive her?" The children would say, "No, she killed our father and has to be punished."
The uncle shows a photo of the older daughter, Najiba. The police investigator said Zarmina may have been covering up for her, that Najiba struck the fatal blow.
If Zarmina really said that, she would have definitely mentioned this at some point. And if the policewoman was told Najiba had done it, then she was a policewoman. She should have done something.
Najiba isn't in Kabul. While Zarmina was in prison, the uncle arranged her marriage to this man. She was 15. The uncle received $3,500 for Najiba. That's 5 years' average salary in Afghanistan. Najiba was with Zarmina the night of the murder. She's a witness. But her uncle is worried about her talking to us. Najiba's husband could divorce her if she talks to foreigners about her mother. Her uncle will take the team to Najiba's village, but only if they hide their identities. He needs to go there anyway, to invite her to a family wedding. Najiba and her husband live in a village 3 hours south of Kabul. Foreigners would arouse curiosity. To protect Najiba, the team wears burqas. As guests of the uncle, they're treated like family. Najiba is the second wife of her husband. He's allowed 4. She must follow the orders of wife number 1. The women say Najiba is the household servant. She knows what happened the night of her father's murder, but she can't talk alone. She's pressed to come back to Kabul for her cousin's wedding. Maybe she can talk there. But she needs her husband's permission to leave the house. For now, there's nothing to do but wait. Back in Kabul, Zarmina's niece is about to be married. They say 2 of Zarmina's other children might be here. The Taliban banned women from singing and dancing, fearing their virginity would be spoiled for men. That's all changed now. And yet, the women here have more risk of dying in childbirth than all but one country in the world. 1 in 4 of their children is likely to die before the age of 5. Bibi, Hiwad and Jawad are all here at the wedding. And so are 2 of Zarmina's other children. Milad, a quiet 11-year-old, their brother. And Jawad's twin, Silsula. She too spent her early life in prison with Zarmina. She too is small for her age. Now they're passed from relative to relative. The next morning we learn Najiba has arrived in Kabul for the wedding. But her husband is with her. She can't talk alone. The translator, Mina, tries to make an arrangement without her husband seeing. Najiba agrees to meet later in a nearby beauty parlour. Banned under the Taliban, beauty parlours are springing up everywhere in Kabul. This is the chance to ask Najiba what really happened on the night of the murder. Her father had been told Zarmina slept with another man.
I told her, if you've done something bad or wrong, he'll kill you. He'll beat you up with a big stick, because we're Afghans. She replied, what am I going to do? My body's shivering and shaking. On the one hand, I was telling myself, let my father kill her. She's doing prostitution. On the other hand, I wanted to help her, because she was my mother.
Najiba remembers what happened the night of the murder.
I saw my mother walking in the yard, and she was very restless. She came in the house and talked for a while. Then she went to bed. It was 1 or 2 o'clock at night when my mother woke me up and told me, get up, your father's soaked. She had obviously already finished the job herself. When I saw him soaked in blood, I lost control. I became hysterical. I ran towards my mother, took hold of her hair and shouted, did you really have to do this, leaving me with no father? You could have gone and disappeared. Did you have to do this? She said, I'll go and bring the Taliban here. I said, you can't do that. I sat her down and locked the door.
Zarmina told her prison guards that Najiba helped her with the murder. Najiba struck the fatal blow. Was the murder planned? Did her mother have an accomplice?
No. Because she had done that bad thing, she was scared that if my father got angry, she would have been killed. That was why she was worried. She got rid of him completely, to be relieved of him forever.
It's impossible to tell whose version is true. But it's brave of Najiba to agree to talk openly. She's only been here an hour, and already she's terrified about her husband. She travels home at high speed. Her husband didn't give her permission to leave the house. Mina goes back with Najiba for support. She was right to be worried. Najiba's husband was livid.
He was looking at me like a wild animal, that it wanted to eat me. He wanted to eat me or kill me like this.
So what do you think's going to happen to her now?
And just maybe he's going to beat her at the moment, and maybe he give her divorce. But we have to do something before that.
I mean, it seems to me that women are living in constant fear.
Yeah, they are living in constant fear. And they don't have permission of drinking a glass of water without permission of their husband.
Back home, we see Najiba. Family members say she's being punished for her interview at the beauty parlour. She's not joining the bride celebrating outside. Here, it's normal for a girl to marry a man she's never met, for her husband to speak for her in a court of law, for his word to count as twice of hers. He can even divorce her if she doesn't bear sons, or keep her on and marry another woman. All of Zarmina's children have been tracked down. The twins, Jawad and Silsila, aged 5. Bibi, aged 10. And Milad, age 11. Zarmina's eldest son, Hiwad, and eldest daughter, Najiba. All of them, except one, Basira. Her brothers and sisters last saw her 3 years ago, when she was sold into marriage. So far, 6 out of Zarmina's 7 children have been found. There's 1 left. Basira was sold into marriage before Zarmina died. She's out of reach, somewhere in the country. Her uncle won't say where. He hasn't told Basira's husband about Zarmina, the family scandal. For the moment, the path is blocked. Basira has disappeared into the ranks of Afghan women. Society here is still traditional. Women are not throwing off their burqas. Our team follows Mina, the translator, in the market. She's one of the few women who doesn't wear a burqa. Everyone says it's optional. But even the producer isn't immune to rough justice.
I just got whacked by somebody. I just got hit. And I got hit hard.
Not wearing a burqa carries a price. The full force of a policeman's truncheon. There have been some changes. Women are returning to university. Mina's friend Najiba Asid has waited 7 years to come back here to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. But her husband doesn't want her to study, so she wants a divorce. Her brother believes that will shame the family.
He bought a handgun and a hand grenade and said he'd kill my father first, then me. A woman is either in the home or in the grave, he said. Education has no meaning for a woman.
Women may be allowed to study, but they're still straitjacketed by custom. Only the brave go without a burqa.
They're afraid. There have been stories that people will throw acid on them if they don't wear a burqa.
There are rumors of acid attacks on women in Afghanistan's second city, Kandahar, 300 miles to the south. The team decides to go there. In the Taliban's former stronghold, the Americans have done their damage. The headquarters of the religious police has been reduced to rubble. They're flying kites here. It used to be banned. But there are still few women on the streets. The Taliban have many supporters here who don't want to see women back in public life.
It says don't go to the National Council. If you go, you will be responsible for the consequences.
Nafisa Khoshal is one of the first women to take part in organised politics. She was rewarded with a death threat. At her clinic, she provides medical care for women. She's seen victims of all kinds of violence. This patient had her ear cut off. The family of the girl wouldn't say who did it.
They were afraid. They didn't say who did it. That means it was done by a relative. And that's why they were afraid.
The problem wasn't the Taliban. There's an underlying culture of violence against women.
The men beat women, confine them to the house. It's like this in almost all of Afghanistan, especially in Kandahar.
On the way back to Kabul, there's news of an attack on women in Ghazni, 6 hours away. It happened in a girls' school, recently reopened after 7 years. Asda was walking home from school when a man suddenly appeared from behind with battery acid.
He wanted to throw it on our faces, but he missed. Then he threw it on our backs. A little bit hit me, but most of it hit my friend. She was screaming. Our clothes were in shreds.
The acid hit her friend's face. She's too frightened to speak. The school has been firebombed. The girls here are now under armed guard. Back in Kabul, Bibi is off to school. Clutching her UNICEF bag, she's the only one of Zarmina's children getting an education. The new regime is encouraging girls to go back to school, but 3/4 of all women are illiterate, and with 80 girls in each class, Bibi's school is desperate for money. No textbooks here. Just 6,000 girls, half of them orphans. The fate of Bibi's sister Basira, Zarmina's last remaining child, is still a mystery. Meanwhile, there are more rumours about gang rapes against girls in the north of Afghanistan.
Some girls, they are coming young. Their parents need to...
The government's new deputy women's minister says she's received letters from anxious women.
Thousands stories come from Kunduz. All the stamps from widows. Yeah. And they said, nobody help us.
She mentions another case about women complaining of soldiers from various factions of the Northern Alliance, the West's allies.
They will attack them, they will kill them, they will rape their girls. They took as 9 years, 10 years young girls from the Pashtun families. They raped them.
To investigate these stories, we head north, crossing the old front line between north and south, the Salang Tunnel. We pass the area controlled by Jamiat, one of the factions within the Northern Alliance. An aid vehicle was ambushed here in June. A Western member of staff was gang raped by 7 men. Finally, our destination, Mazar-e-Sharif, controlled by a Northern Alliance faction. There are reports of rapes, but there's little to go on, no names or addresses. Just one neighbourhood, and nobody wants to talk. The search finally narrows down to one street in Mazar. Here, some months ago, soldiers from rival factions of the Northern Alliance were vying for territory. They took over the police station and, in a show of power, attacked 2 families next door. One of the families agrees to talk. The soldiers came into their house, tied up the men, and took the women aside, one by one. They saw Gita, a 14-year-old girl.
I told my mother to go with me because I was afraid. They hit her in the chest and said, "Let her go alone." My mother brought them the Quran and swore them not to hurt me. No, they said, "We won't do anything to her. We also have a sister and a mother." When he took me to the other room, the commander told me to sit. He blindfolded me and laid me down. He held his gun on my forehead when I screamed. Then he hit me here on my chest. Then all 4 raped me. 2 of them went to the roof. The youngest one of them raped me twice, but the others raped me once.
Gita was brought to this hospital. The nurse who treated her says her case isn't isolated. She's since dealt with several other rapes in Mazar. She's too frightened to be interviewed, but the doctor who treated Gita is brave enough to go on the record.
We examined the patients. There were 2 girls whose virginity was lost. One of the girls was soaked in blood and had many bruises on her hands and legs. It seemed she had resisted hard.
As if the gang rape wasn't enough, her father and brother now beat her. She's no longer a virgin. She's brought the family shame.
Was it worse under the Taliban, or is it worse now?
In recent times, it's worse. Under the Taliban, you weren't hassled. Now there is no law and order. No one is in control. Everybody has to look after their own security.
Two soldiers were arrested for raping Gita, but 2 others are still at large. After weeks of waiting, the uncle is finally persuaded to allow a visit to Basira, Zarmina's last child. He's still worried. Basira's husband doesn't know about Zarmina. He could divorce Basira if he finds out. Basira lives 80 miles south of Kabul, 60 miles from the Pakistani border. The team stops to pick up reinforcements. 5 soldiers lead the way. The local commander says they'll need them. The team must wear burqas. Foreigners are not welcome here. It's a 3-hour journey to the mountains. Cars are routinely attacked by bandits here. The road is mined. This is Al-Qaeda territory. Basira, it seems, is living with the enemy. The soldiers are nervous. Aid workers were kept prisoner here by Al-Qaeda. These men fought for their release. At last they arrive, in the middle of nowhere. Basira came here after her marriage at the age of 13, while her mother was still in prison. She hasn't seen her brothers and sisters since. To not arouse suspicion, the team's camera stays hidden. It's carried by Mina, the translator. She'll say she's a friend of the family. At last, a glimpse of Zarmina's last child, Basira. She rarely gets visitors. She asks about her brothers and sisters. And her mother, how is she? She doesn't know her mother is dead. Mina has to break it to her. She tries to hide her feelings from her in-laws. She can't tell them why she's crying.
All of that happened because they were fighting.
What's wrong? What? You should be happy you have a visitor.
Quietly, she's asked about the relationship between her father and mother.
It was not good. He was beating, kicking, and hitting her. And he broke her head and hand. Someone told my father in front of other people that my mother did bad things with a man. It was said my father was going to beat her. Before my father could do anything, my mother killed him.
What about her marriage at the age of 13?
Were you forced?
Yes. It was 80 million Afghanis for me, 40 million for my sister.
$3,500 was her price. The women ask about her 10-year-old sister.
Have they found a husband for Bibi?
Is Bibi married yet?
No, she's too small.
Basira is the second wife of a man twice her age. She has one child and is pregnant with another.
It isn't easy being one of two wives of any husband, in fact. I do worry about it.
Basira slips out of the house so Mina can take her picture to show her brothers and sisters. Back in Kabul, the team sees Zarmina's children for the last time. Their uncle says he'll care for them. But these are the children of a disgraced mother. And in Afghanistan, that means their future is uncertain. Milad draws a picture of his mother.
Why are you drawing that?
I just drew it.
You like it?
Yes.
If you could see your mother and father, what would you tell them?
I would be happy to see them. I would tell them, let's go home.